Welcome back. So I'm Jake, he's Jake, or he's Jake and I'm Jake, whichever way you want to do it.
Dave.
Jake and Dave.
We've not used Dave for a while, have we? I think we've settled into the fact that you are actually a Jake as
and
well.
Jake.
And you
Yeah.
managed to get your blue tick as Jake as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so all I had to do was put my surname on the so I thought I'd have to change the whole thing because obviously to get that sorted, you need to do your passport or your driving license, and they say David Jake Mees on them.
Yes, we didn't know we're proper influencers now. We've got our blue ticks, you know.
Yeah.
But
it's just insurance, though, isn't it?
no, it
Like,
is. Yeah,
it's
a joke.
Yeah, the only reason we've done that.
So a few of my mates took the piss, like, fucking hell, you.
Well, I had this conversation with Sophie. So she was like, "Do you not?" She was like, "I understand." She was like, "I get why you're doing it," but she was like, "Do you not think people are like, why the hell's he done that? He's obviously just paid for a tick." And I was like, "It's literally because it's a business page, and there's nothing to stop it getting hacked tomorrow. So if
you hear about that all the time,
because that tick does nothing for us, like from a reach point of view,
no,
literally nothing. All it does is it means it's harder for people to hack into the page, and if something does happen, it's easier for us to get it back because
that's our business essentially.
We run a large portion of our business for it, so it is literally just insurance.
Yeah.
So
we're not trying to be influencers.
No. But yeah, no. I literally all I had to do. I thought I'd have to change like one of the tags in my thing just to David Jake Mees, but I didn't. I just put my surname in there.
Yeah.
So I think it says like Jake Mees online transformation coach or something like that. And it went through. So I was like, buzzing. Got it sorted.
Right, so no more Big Dave. You're officially Jake now.
Interchangeable. So obviously my cousin that did the shoot, he didn't even know my first name was David. Like he couldn't believe it. When he found out from, I don't know how he found out, whether it was in one of the chats or on this.
So when did you, obviously your first name's David. So when did you actually start becoming Jake? When did you morph into Jake full time?
No, literally from birth.
Oh really?
My mum and dad have always called me Jake.
Shit.
I don't know if it's a family thing or if it's just they thought David Jake sounded better than Jake David.
Okay.
They've called me that and then they referred to me as Jake. So it's not even like I've made the conscious decision to be like, I don't like David. I want to be called Jake.
Yeah.
It's just what I've always been. Which is, nearly got me into. Did we mention this on a podcast before? It nearly got me into trouble at school once, and I got detention for it. Like that.
Yeah.
I thought we might have done. I won't go back into the story then.
Okay.
I couldn't remember who was telling about it the other day, but yeah, everyone changed their names in school on the register, and then when the real teacher came back, kicked off about it, didn't they? And I nearly got in trouble. So yeah, it's been a bit of a ball ache, to be honest with you.
Sorted though now, isn't it? Jake and Jake.
So yeah, welcome back. So we did an episode on how we write training programs, didn't we? How we write training plans, how we go through that process. So we thought it would be a good idea to go through how we do nutrition targets for people, and not how we write meal plans. We're not going to be talking about how we write a meal plan because typically we don't. But how we
talk about how meal plans are okay in certain circumstances,
but how we set calorie targets for people, protein targets, all that kind of thing. And it literally starts with the assessment week, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I think, again, just to touch on maybe kind of previous episodes, this is more for us to kind of show that, one, it isn't one size fits all, and it is very much tailored to you and your requirements, your wants, your needs, the amount of flexibility you need. If you've got a family, you've not got so many things to take into consideration, because again, this is why things like calorie calculators online, they're a great base point for
they can be useful to start with, but they are literally a start point. They're a guesstimation.
They're a guesstimation, and there's a million and one other things that you need to take into consideration alongside that. So yeah, for us to begin with, so if you were a new client, you will do an assessment week for us. Your first week, which is basically a week where we get to grips with what your current nutrition looks like.
Yeah.
And what we ask clients to do in an assessment week is we ask them to be very honest about things as well. So
literally we say, we don't care how bad it looks.
Don't tidy anything up.
You can guarantee however bad it looks, we've seen worse.
Yeah, and like, I think just people are key, because it's like the first week essentially of coaching is for assessment week. And I think people are keen to like start then. And I'm like, listen, for the first week, just fucking eat normal, okay? Yeah. I don't care if you're eating Mackies every day. I do not give a shit.
Yeah, we need to know what you've been doing up to now.
Exactly.
So that we can start to give you a solution to make tweaks and improve it.
Exactly. And I think as well, like one of the things I say to people is I want to change as little as I possibly can do. Because that means there's less friction. It means that you're going to start getting results pretty much straight away with doing the same kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And people are like, all right, okay, that makes sense when I explain it to them. But again, the reason we do it is so we can see your kind of current eating habits, patterns, if there's anything that really does need changing, or if there's anything that doesn't need changing.
Yeah.
So we get people to track their macros via MyFitnessPal, update us with that, bit of a food diary. We'll look at like caffeine intake, water intake, any supplements. We'll track weight on a daily basis again, just so we can, if we can see there's any crazy fluctuations. Maybe it's like after a weekend where things go tits up for a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Training and just gives us the best possible, the most information to build the best possible plan.
Yeah. And what we can then basically do, what we do is literally we'll then be like, right, we can see for the last week you've averaged X amount of calories a day, let's say 1,500 calories a day. And we can also see over that week that your weight's gone up by 0.2 of a kilo, or it's gone down by 0.2 of a kilo. So we can make an assumption, providing that everything else is pretty regular and consistent and you've not been drinking a load or whatever, that amount of calories has caused that slight increase in weight. So then we can be like, okay, well, if we're wanting to diet it down, maybe we just need to drop it a little bit by this amount. So it just gives us a nice start point to meet where you're currently at and be like, okay, this is how many calories you're generally eating. This is how your weight's generally responding. So now we know with these two bits of information what we need to adjust to start going in the right direction.
And that's it. And I don't use calorie calculators or anything.
I do, but almost I do it to double check. So I'll have a look at that average. I'll have a look at what the weight's doing. I'll then figure out, okay, well, this is probably where we're going to need to be sitting. And then I'll do the calculation almost just to be like, I wonder if it's close or if it's accurate. Sometimes it's well out, and sometimes like, all right, we'll ignore that. Sometimes it's actually pretty close, and it's like, okay, cool, this probably is going to be about where they need to be. But it just depends on the person.
Depends on the person. And again, for some people, they might not know how to track properly and things. So again, it just gives us that insight into your kind of knowledge base around it and stuff like that. And but yeah, I mean, we're kind of you get to a point after you've coached as many people as we have that you almost kind of what the person's assessment is going to look like.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, and even I can go off like pictures. I can look at someone's pictures and I can say, right, I kind of know what targets I'm going to give them.
Yeah.
I just want to see those eating patterns and those habits and what I need to tweak. But yeah, listen, like an assessment is a mega important part of the process. And I think it's something that's overlooked. And I know that a lot of coaches don't do it. I think, anyone who kind of works with Dan and Mike will do because it's, they advise everybody to do that. But ultimately, I think it's a lot of people say, well, just kind of explain what a normal day looks like.
Yeah.
And that's great. But often because people,
they'll undersell it.
They I've had that a little bit. And it's like, okay, so a normal day isn't actually a normal day. And we're not identifying where the problems are.
But that's one of the other benefits I've noticed of when you get people to do this assessment week and they are honest with it, they'll often message halfway through the week being like, fucking hell, I didn't actually realize I was eating all this or I was snacking so much.
Yeah.
This, that, and the other.
And then he'd never used MyFitnessPal. Literally yesterday, he'd never used MyFitnessPal before, and he's doing his assessment week this week. And he was like, "Can I just ring you?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, give us a ring." And he rang me, and he was like, "I just wanted to say, I have never had an eye-opening experience like this when it comes to nutrition because he's never tried." His words were, as a lot of people will say, "I've always eaten clean."
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, that doesn't mean that it's right. Okay, so I'm like, let's just track it. And he's like, I am shocked at how many calories I'm consuming. Yeah, and it is like that's a big thing we get with assessment week.
Yeah, it is. And then, like you say, because then we're already on the footing of they're already then thinking about, okay, well, actually, I can already see this is probably not great. I can probably improve on this. So when it even comes to us programming, they're already thinking, or they already sort of know what to expect in a sense of, okay, I know this is probably going to need to be adjusted. And then what I'll generally do, and I'm sure you'll be the same, is when it comes to sending over their programming, I'll always do like a video going through what their nutrition targets are going to be. And I'll get up their assessment week and I'll be like, okay, so you've averaged this many calories, your protein's around here. I'll go through the diet and I'll be like, okay, so these couple of meals that you're having maybe through the day, these are okay. These look pretty good.
Yeah.
But this evening meal, this is maybe where we're slipping up. Maybe we want to swap it for X, Y, and Z. These snacks, maybe swap it for X, Y, and Z.
Generally the snacks.
Something like that. But it'll literally be a case of just going through what they've eaten and then, okay, this is how we might want to tweak it to start hitting these new targets. And then what I'll do in their first week, not for everyone, if like someone comes in and they're eating really well, then it's okay, let's just tweak it to these targets, should be fine. If someone needs a bit more help, it's like, okay, in that first week, I want you to send me pictures of your meals and of your MyFitnessPal screenshots, send it over to me, and we can just make sure you're
logging it up that way and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we'll just do that for the first couple of weeks to get it going. But it literally starts with that assessment week of where are you at, what can we change, what's the smallest thing that we can change to start getting you in the right
It's
direction.
like the low hanging fruit in it. What can
Literally.
we, just to get the ball rolling? And for some people, that is going to be, if you're more experienced, we might come in like, right, wicked, you know what you're doing. So we can start giving you macro targets
Yeah.
straight away. You're quite into your training, perfect. For some people, I mean, like literally, I would just say, listen, for the first week, all I want you to do is track your calories.
Yeah.
That's it. I might not even give them targets because I just
Yeah.
want you to get into to the groove of doing that. And then, week 2, week 3, it's like, okay, now you've got a calorie target. Then we start to introduce protein, and over time, and you do it over time, and you add in things step by step. Because if you're trying to overwhelm someone, and again, everyone listening to this podcast or watching this, if you want to see our beautiful faces, will know that like if you try to go too hard, and you're trying to do 5 training sessions a week, you're trying to eat all the healthiest foods in the world, and you've kind of overwhelmed yourself, you can't stick to it.
No.
So again, that's why we try and change as little as possible and really introduce things gradually, step by step.
Yeah. And it's literally that. It's if you change so much so quickly, like whenever you try to diet, if you straight away drop your food, try and do as much cardio as you can, try and get to the gym every day, you've got nowhere else to go. Like you need to then maintain that if you want to see progress. And obviously after 3-4 weeks of that, you're going to be absolutely fucked.
Yeah.
Whereas if we can come in and be like, okay, this is where you're currently at. Let's just make this small tweak and that'll kickstart some sort of progress. And then because we'll try and diet people on as much food as we can generally, unless they've got like a time restrictive goal and we've got a short amount of time to do as much as we can. Then we might push a bit more aggressive. But otherwise it'll be, let's try and do this on as much food as we can, make life as easy as possible.
Yeah.
And just literally make small tweaks to what.
Yeah,
and
and I think that surprises a lot of people because they come in and again they've tried these over restrictive diets in the past. Maybe they've used calorie calculators.
Yeah.
MyFitnessPal's a bastard for giving people low calories as well if you go off their target.
Yeah.
Because everyone always like picks the maximum range,
and then it'll add calories back in for expenditure, won't it?
It drives me mad that. But yeah, so I think a lot of people come in. I'm like, right, I want you to eat X amount of calories, and they're like, that's a lot. And I'm like, yeah. Well, how's it worked out for you in the past when you've eaten less? Yeah, not very well. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's just be consistent with these targets.
Yeah.
People start to see results and they're like, fucking hell, I'm dieting on this many calories.
And if your biggest problem is that you're eating too much food when you're dieting, it's not a bad problem to have.
Exactly that.
Not a bad problem to have.
That's why so it's individual to everybody. Some people obviously come in and I'm like, right, we need to drop your calories massively. Like you eat way too much. Some I'm like, you're not eating enough. Some I'm like, actually, you're kind of where we need you to be. A couple of tweaks and we're going to be on the right track.
And that's it. So something else I'll say is like your baseline targets, what we give you to start with. Again, could be doing ourselves out of job, but that's the worst the plan is ever going to be. It's going to be the worst plan I ever give you because I don't know you yet. So with every week that we can track and see how your body responds, we'll learn a bit more about you. We can tweak those targets to get them where we want to be. So it is a case of sometimes you'll just hit a sweet spot and you'll give them some targets and the weight will just drop and drop and drop week after week and you'll be pretty good for a long time. But other times it's a case of, okay, here's your start targets. We'll run that for a couple of weeks. How are we getting on? Okay, now we'll just adjust a lot. And it's small adjustments in it as you go.
Very small adjustments.
Small adjustments. How we've responded to that. Okay, do we need to change anything again? And every time you do it, it just gets a little bit better and a bit more accurate. And I think the problem with jumping from one plan to another, one coach to another, one target from another to another, like every 2 or 3 weeks, you're only ever staying in that state of having that least accurate plan that you could possibly have because you're never really learning how your body responds to stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas if you almost go in with the attitude of, okay, the first few weeks, we probably will see progress, but even if we don't, it's just going to be about learning how my body responds, learning how to improve my routines, and then it'll get better over time.
I'll say this to all of our clients, and generally speaking, you do see results in the first 3 to 4 weeks, even if it's maybe not things like weight drop in the composition.
Yeah.
That kind of
certainly
stuff.
A lot of like water weight will drop in the first few weeks.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're establishing habits, we're establishing routine, we're establishing structure, and then once we've got that, then it makes it really easy to then drop calories, increase calories, whatever we need to do because the habits are in place.
Yeah.
And like obviously, for example, I've just had a guy start with me and he's, he's kind of notoriously kind of dieted quite hard in the past, never really worked out for him long term. So I'm like, right, well, let's diet you on more calories and give you the energy to train hard, which he enjoys.
Yeah.
Recover properly from that. Again, he's like messaged me this week saying, fucking hell, I feel amazing. I'm like, yeah, there you go. And we didn't need to change much.
No.
And it surprised him. I think some people are surprised at how simple it needs to be.
Yeah. And then when it comes to like protein targets, again, obviously there's like a standard guideline of like 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. You might want to go a bit higher if you're dieting in a deficit. You could probably go a little bit lower if you're in a surplus.
Yeah.
According to like research, at the end of the day, it just comes down to what you like doing. As long as you're hitting that baseline and you're getting enough in, which is around the sort of 2 grams per kilo,
Yeah.
you could drop to 1.6 potentially.
Yeah.
If you're in a surplus, but I don't really tend to go that low. Certainly not long term. You'll be fine. But again, that just comes down to where that person is at in their assessment week. So if I get someone come in and they're only hitting an average of 40 grams of protein a day and they don't really know where to get protein from, I'm not going to turn around to them and be like, okay, well, now I want you to hit 180 grams a day.
Go up to 80.
It's not going to happen. It's literally, okay, yeah, let's just go up to 80.
Get that. Then we'll go, in 3
Build
weeks,
it up,
we'll go to 100. Then we'll go to this. And it's, again, it's about building it up over time. Because, like you say, if you were to say, well, actually, I want you to add 100 grams of protein per day on top of what you're currently consuming, and they're already struggling to get protein in, the chances are that's going to overwhelm them and they're not going to enjoy it. So,
and then the only caveat I put to that is if I get someone who's vegan, I'll probably say we'll put in a little bit extra.
I'm joking, by the way.
But I will probably say, okay, we're going to bump your protein up a little bit higher. Just because of the makeup of the protein sources that they're going to be getting in isn't going to be as favourable as potentially meat and fish.
And that's where supplements and things can help out as well.
Yeah, like essential amino acids are actually quite useful for plant-based eaters.
Yeah.
Or for people who just don't like eating meat and fish in general, because again, it's just going to help bump that up easily. So with plant-based eaters, I'll generally be like, we're going to add a little bit of extra protein on here, and we might have to build up to that. But it is just a case of meeting whoever it is where they're at.
And also, I mean, depends on how motivated you're feeling at the start. Generally speaking, people come into coaching and they're buzzing, right?
Yeah.
They're happy they're starting a new journey. They're going to get into great shape. They're excited. They've seen the results other people are getting, so they want some of that. So I like to try and kind of take that and run with it as much as possible. So I again, it depends on the person, but generally speaking, I like to go quite aggressive at the start, just a couple of weeks, because I think if you can see, a couple of pounds come off in the first few weeks, or a couple of kilograms, you start to see your body change a little bit. Clothes start to feel a little bit better in terms of when you're wearing those. Even though you're in a calorie deficit, which in theory you should be a little bit more tired, lethargic, because motivation is so high, you don't care about that. You don't even notice that, right? That's not a thing. So actually, what we can do there is just get some momentum behind you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're the same, like...
No, I'm literally the exact same. I'll tend to, if I know the person can track it accurately and can stick to it, I'll always go a bit more aggressive in the start. And then, like you said, depending on where they're coming from, those first few weeks, if they're suddenly eating more single ingredient foods, more veg, more fruit, that kind of thing, they're going to feel better day to day. And this is sort of the
drinking more water, sleeping better, training better.
And this is the argument I've sort of made with people in the past, where I've had clients in the past turn around to me and said, I think I need to go vegan because I think it'll help with my fat loss. And I'm sort of, well, maybe not clients, but people I've had like calls with, and they're like, oh, I'm going to try and go vegan because I think it'll help with fat loss. And and you question them on it. And what I kind of say to them is like, there's nothing wrong with being vegan or plant-based, like go for it. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But you could probably get the same benefits physically if you just added in more fruit and veg to what you're currently doing. Because the chances are at the minute, you're probably just eating too much processed stuff and not enough fresh stuff.
Yeah.
You could just add the fresh stuff in alongside some decent protein, like meat and fish, and you'll probably see very similar benefits.
Yeah.
That's not to say that there's anything wrong with plant-based, because there isn't. You can 100% do that. You can diet very well off of it. You can build muscle very well off of it. But if your only reason for doing that is because you think it will help you lose body fat quicker, it won't.
Yeah. No, 100% not.
And I think that's when a lot of people who do it, I think what the point I was trying to make was, a lot of people who do it then turn around and be like, oh yeah, I feel amazing. I feel 100 times better. It's like, well, yeah, you do, but it's because you were eating very well beforehand, and going plant-based in a good way has forced you to eat better and think about your food more. But you could have got that same benefit by eating the exact same thing to what you're now eating.
But having protein.
With some meat, with some chicken, with some whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally just that.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bit off topic there, but it's literally just that. So yeah, that's sort of how we program nutrition targets. We'll look through the assessment week. We'll see where they're at. We'll either meet them where they're at, or sort of set a target relatively close to where they're at, depending on how the weights change through the week on their average calories.
Yeah.
And then we just build it up from there. And it's just week by week, trial and error. We don't, like, I personally don't really change targets within the first 2 to 3 weeks.
Because you want them to just be consistent with what you've given them.
Yeah.
Once we've developed consistency, we can see if it's working. Then we can make tweaks.
Yeah. And sometimes you'll get outliers. Sometimes people, like, if you ever had it with a client where they've been like, oh, I'm like they'll be on quite low food, and they'll be like, "Oh, so and so is eating more than me, but they're smaller than me. Should I not be eating more?" And I've had that a couple of times, and it's like, "Well, we had you on more food. Were you losing weight?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, "Well, we need to be on less then."
And
Like, and it's just that
again,
just
it's
is
so
dependent on the
individual. So
person.
I've got one client who has got thyroid issues and
Mm.
PCOS, and it's like, okay, well, we know, unfortunately for you, and it is really, really shit. And when you have to break this news to people, it's fucking rubbish. But they kind of know it anyway.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have to diet on much lower
Yeah.
calories than the normal person, and
Yeah.
it is going to be really, really hard for you in
Yeah.
comparison. And again, that's just about us managing expectations of our clients. But again, it's all individual because in theory, on paper, I could, if you use a calorie calculator, that person's calories will probably come up a lot higher.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that doesn't take into consideration the issues that person's got
Yeah.
and the problems that person's going to have to contend with.
Yeah.
So actually, we have to be okay. Well, that's if everything was equal, yeah, you could probably eat more, but unfortunately, we'll have to eat less.
Yeah.
And again, that's just that.
One of the guys I have who just did the shoot, when we started, he was 120 kilos, came from a powerlifting background. He's over 6 foot, like he's a big guy,
Ben,
big guy, and like just a big muscular. Like obviously he's done powerlifting for a lot of years, big frame. His calories for the shoot we dropped down to about 1,400 a day, and it was literally like you would think, at 90% of people his size would probably be able to diet off 2,000 plus calories a day.
you'd imagine so, but everybody's different.
We started him on that. Weight didn't budge, and we just gradually dropped and dropped and dropped until we got to a point where it started shifting.
I had one client at the shoot. He was 70 kilograms by the shoot. In fact, just under Nathan.
Yeah,
Really lean, really, really lean, like crazy lean. And he was on really high calories. Like up until the end, I had him at like damn near 3,000 calories, and he was losing body fat on that.
yeah,
Whereas I had some guys who were 95, 100 kilograms who had to come down to
yeah,
1,700 calories. And it's just your genetic makeup. It's
yeah,
just the way it is. I generally have to diet quite aggressive
yeah,
in order to see results, like just the way I am,
yeah,
just the way my body works. At the moment, I'm on less calories than you,
yeah. You are.
and you're 15 kilograms lighter than me,
Yeah,
pretty much. So it's just down to the person.
yeah.
So it's not one. Again, it's not one plan or certain amount of calories fits all.
No, and just don't compare your intake to someone else's.
Yeah.
I think just to finish up on that, like, it doesn't matter how you track it either. Like, you can track it via macro, so you could do protein, carbs, and fats. You could track it protein and calories. You could just do calories if you needed to. You could just do a meal plan. Some people have literally just given like very generic guidelines to, so okay, with each meal, have a good protein have a good serving of protein, have 2 to 3 handfuls of veg.
Yeah, and don't snack.
And don't start. And it can literally be as simple as that.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really matter
Long
as long as
term
you
as
can be
well, like
consistent.
once you've got a client from A to B, and because tracking, listen, I don't track for all the time. Like at the moment, I'm tracking. I generally track. I actually track a lot of the time just because it's kind of it's habit for me now, and it's like methodical. But yeah, for some clients who I know don't want to track forever, they might track for a period of time to get them from A to B to get you into the condition you want. Then it's like, okay, well, like, listen, I know that you don't want to track your calories forever. I'm fully aware of that. So now we'll start kind of moving away from it. We'll start tracking untracked days, untracked meals, start introducing maybe different ways of tracking things, which might be 3 meals a day, protein source with each of those meals, decent portion of carbs and a handful of veg. Don't snack in between those meals.
Yeah.
Like, you can gradually just take people away from it.
But you have to almost spend that time initially.
You do.
With tracking to just learn about nutrition, to understand portion sizes, to understand food sources.
You can get
massive. And then once you've done that for a while, I'll do the exact same thing. When I've got clients who have done that for a while, they're not strictly dieting, and we can be like, right, I'm confident now that if I give you an untracked day, you're still going to be pretty good at hazarding a guess at what you need to be eating.
Calories will be the same.
And you're not just going to use it as an excuse to go crazy.
Exactly that. And when clients eventually get to a point where they're kind of finished with me, one of the best bits of advice I got years ago, and that I still give to people now, is if you still want to be a little bit kind of like you don't want to go off track. So you want to make sure you're guarding against complacency. Track on a Monday. Don't track the rest of the week. If you track your food for a Monday, and like you know you're going to be similar, you can gauge it for the rest of the week.
That's a good idea. I cross up, but that is a good idea.
Something that I use when I'm maintaining, and it just tends to work really, really well.
Because then you can literally just be like, well, I just need to do what I did on Monday.
Exactly.
And you can just,
and then you might have more freedom and flexibility the weekend, but Monday to Friday, you're going to be eating similar kind of foods.
Yeah.
So
such a good idea, is that?
Little tip.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think that's it. That's pretty much how we program nutrition targets, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's no point us going into the detail of like how we would potentially change carb and fat splits around for different kind of people with like around the training windows, because anabolic window, you don't need to worry about that. Like, yeah, it's probably a good idea if you're really, really pushing building muscle to have a few more carbs around the training window. That's about it.
Yeah. It literally is about it. And I remember I used to finish workouts and I'd have like my protein in my fucking locker.
Oh, straight.
Like I'd have to leg it to the gym, like get my
yeah.
protein shake straight, like they're using the water in the gym.
Yeah.
And that was like, it was my anabolic window. And it's,
Yeah.
it's not that important. Well, it's just not important at all, really.
No.
As long as you're getting in within a few hours, literally.
Yeah. But that's it.
But yeah,
do it.
So basically, just to recap, you'll do an assessment week for us. I'll ignore it completely. I'll give you chicken and broccoli 8 times a day. No, joking. But yeah, no, hopefully you found that useful. And I suppose if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about how we do that stuff, drop us a message.
Yeah. Literally, we'll just chat to you. Or we'll even just send you a video example.
Yeah,
you can have a look at how it actually looks.
Yeah.
Don't mind doing that.
Yeah, I do, because
effort. All right, I'll record one. I'll send you the link,
and
then you
send
can
it
pass
me,
it
and I'll
on,
send it to people.
and then you won't even have to listen to him. So it's added bonus.
So, all right, nice one, guys.
See you in the next one.
See you later.